So, Murray and Smith had a little debate, and let's be real, Murray really effed up. Dave Smith's still an idiot, but you know what? No, okay, that's not fair. Dave Smith is not an idiot. He is I'm not sure how to say this. He's too Western to understand the Middle East. Like he not even Western. It's like he's too modern. Like he doesn't understand the cruelty, the brutality, the disgusting nature of what is going on in the Middle East. And he's trying to apply his modern logic to it, which doesn't work, bro. You are dealing with people who live. Like, try to imagine using your moral compass for people who live like 500 to 1,000 years ago. You can't. Like, it doesn't work that way. Am I calling them primitive? Not really. Like, they have technology, they know how to make shit, but the culture is of Hamas specific, not Palestinians. I've seen plenty of videos of people in Gaza literally being modern, okay? Before Hamas like took a dump all over them, okay? Yes, on the people of Gaza. Hamas took a dump on the people of Gaza and ruined Gaza, okay? I think that's, if I have biases, you know what they are now, okay? Anyways, this was actually a pretty interesting conversation, and as funny as it is, people are complaining that Murray was taking Dave Smith out of context the whole time. Like you ask him something and he's like goes in circles and shit like that, or like talks about things that are like not relevant. Especially when he brought the expert thing. No one cares about that, especially not on the Joe Rogan podcast. Okay, no one really cares about an expert or not. They just care about opinions and whatever. Fact of the matter is, as is going to be mentioned, Dave Smith has practically no knowledge of the situation. He has whatever knowledge he got from basically social media. He has done no research, none of that. Now, the problem with this is I don't care if he's an expert or not. You don't have to be an expert. You didn't have to like study 10 plus years on a subject to understand it. That's not my point at all. However, as Murray did correctly say, Dave has been talking about this for a year and a half. And I don't care that he didn't go to Israel. But the sum of his research is conclusions that he got from videos that he saw, which were more than likely propaganda either of one side or the other, and he already made his decision, and now everything that he watches, he's just he looks at it in the context of the decision he already made. He's not stupid, but he's already caught in a bias. Realizing it or not doesn't matter. Right? He just views it as one thing and not like as a whole. He's like, okay, well, killing babies is bad. Yes, killing babies is bad. What is your solution to a Hamas terrorist running around with a baby strapped on his chest? What is your solution? Yes, killing babies is bad. What is your solution? Can you offer one? No? Okay. So what is your point exactly? That killing babies is bad? Alright, cool. Killing babies is bad. Wow. Great. Great point. Right, and then there's the whole like well, what would be an appropriate response, right? Listen. Hamas knows this is like, something that is like pretty much common knowledge in like the Middle East, and probably anyone who like knows anything about Israel. Hamas knows that Israel values one dead citizen of theirs for 1,000 live terrorists, because that is the trade that are being made in Israel. Hamas has been kidnapping people, and they have been, or murdering and taking their body, whatever, kidnapping and then murdering, whatever, and then trading a body, not even a live person, a body, for hundreds to up to 1,000 terrorists. Okay? So Israel values its citizens. So if you ask me, what is a good exchange from Israel's point of view if there is a terrorist strapping a baby on himself as a shield? What is the equivalency here? Kill him. And if the baby dies, then unfortunately that is the case. The baby is not the target, but yeah, that is the battlefield there. There's nothing you can do about it. That is the battlefield. That is the circumstances they're dealing with. And you can say it's like, oh well, whatever. It's like, oh, that's evil. Okay. And I'm going to even go further and say, like, the soldiers that are doing it, many of them have PTSD. I had a friend from school who was a sniper, PTSD. He didn't even last a year as a sniper. So he finished his training, whatever, went sniping, boom, like PTSD on like first or second, like he couldn't do it anymore. And he was locked in his room for like half a year. It's like, oh, poor guy, he killed a person and now he's suffering. Yes. You think he wanted to kill the guy? Like, you think he, like, you know, was born and like, oh man, I want to kill people. Like, no, that's not the case, okay? There's suffering on both sides. And what is the cause of this? Hamas. If you don't agree with it, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Go seek a professional, mental, you know, psychologist, whatever. Get your meds. You know, good luck to you. If you don't agree on this, I don't know what to tell you. I think Hamas are the good guys and Israel the evil guys. Israel, whichever country they made peace with, have had absolutely no problem with. Jordan, no problem with Jordan. Egypt, no problem with Egypt. Okay, everyone they made peace with, no problems. Nobody wants the Palestinians. Either they want to use them as a propaganda against Israel, such as Iran using them. Egypt doesn't want them. What they call Jordan doesn't want them. Nobody wants them. Okay, and the only ones who want them are other terrorist groups like Hezbollah and just basically Iran, who supplies them. Okay, if you think that they are the good guys, I'm sorry, I cannot help you. Anyways, let's get on with the show.
Sure. I wouldn't say it had anything to do with Douglas. I would have to say it was the statements that Dave Smith made during the podcast, which highlight, and I won't get into the credentialism as Dave's quoting four-star generals or who's an expert, who's not. I do research. I think Dave tells jokes for a living. I had a problems with the statements you were made, and then how do you come to that conclusion, which really does get to the podcaster world versus other individuals on how did you come to that opinion or that declarative statement, like Israel is intentionally killing civilians. I mean, there's like 10 different ways you can do research. You can do comparative, case study. And I think this is what Douglas was saying. If you haven't been there, then how are you getting to your conclusion? You ethnographic, you can go there and do interviews in Gaza, like both Douglas and I have done with soldiers. What's going on? How are you doing it? You can do even historical archival data research. That's not what it appears that Dave does, and it seems to be more of a historical revisionism. Take a piece of data that you got and then tell a really convincing narrative on how you got to your conclusion. But as somebody who has students, I mean, correlation is not causation, is that famous phrase, when that story is actually just a lot of correlation and inferences. How did you get to your conclusion? How do you do that research? Forget the expertise and the credentialism. You're making a statement like it's true, and I know Dave's anti-war, and that's great, but you can't be anti-factual, and Dave, without Douglas, just made a bunch of not true statements.
It's gonna be a net. Now, technically, he did muddy the water there. Dave is gonna talk about it, like, oh well, you know, I'm an expert at this, and I tell you're an expert in this, and I'm tell jokes for a living. Technically, it's true though. I mean, it is true. It is true, and the thing is, he also doesn't answer the question of what research he has done. Like, it's fine to have an opinion. Don't get me wrong. It's fine to have an opinion, but it's like you have to kind of like have some equality of playing field. You know, I can't like I can have an opinion that like the Earth is flat, right? And I go to like you know a NASA scientist and debate him. But what is the debate gonna be about? Well, I believe the whole Earth is flat, and like he gives me all the proof he wants, and it's like he realized that there's nobody to talk to. Like this guy is a fucking idiot. He thinks the Earth is flat, and no matter what I'm gonna tell him, he doesn't believe it. Why? Because he believes the Earth is flat. How did you get to the conclusion that the Earth is flat? That is the question, right? And when you're talking to like somebody who is like, you don't have to be an expert to talk about a subject, but you have to have like enough information on the subject to have a concrete, logical pathway to your conclusion, right? You can't just say stuff and just like be like, well, that's just what I believe, and it's like, okay, but like the this is where like I'm not a fan of experts. By the way, experts have been like sucking for the last 10 years. Let's be real. But at least they can get you from like the point of the the beginning of what becomes the bigger picture and their argument. They can at least get you there. Dave can't do that. I haven't heard him say anything that does that. He only says stuff like, well, they're killing babies, so it's bad. And then he also says, he'll say it in this video where it's like, I just want Israel to say that they are killing babies, and it's like, the numbers show it. Babies are being killed. Yes, it happens. Like, what the fuck? Like what? Like what? The biggest problem I have is actually with the specific word that he uses. We'll see it in a second.
Flash Pierce.
When he said, I'll pause.
Well, give some of the key examples of what you think were
care to share
completely factually inaccurate.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think the over one, which is what me and Dave were talking over X, is that Israel is intentionally killing civilians, especially
that problem, that word, intentionally. Now, technically, he is not wrong. Intention or purpose, okay? The problem with that word is, even though by definition he is right, they're not avoiding civilian casualties if they can get a high profile target, and for that and high profile doesn't have to go very far. Okay, they know there are multiple terrorists in a building. They sent warnings that this building better be evacuated. We're gonna bomb this building because we know terrorists are operating from here. Even if we don't kill the terrorists, we will at least destroy their operating capabilities in that region. So, civilians, you better evacuate. And they give this message multiple times, and I think it's like there's a pretty big notice, like a few days. I don't remember I think it's like either 2 days or like a week. I don't remember the exact time, but it's not like, tomorrow. Okay, it's not enough time for the terrorists to move their operations from that location, but it's enough time for everyone to leave. Okay, maybe it's 2 hours. I'm not even sure. I don't remember. However, they are doing that. Now, are they still intentionally going to destroy that building even if civilians are there? Yes. So based on definition, they are intentionally targeting civilians. But you can see how that would be misconstrued as, well, they're just targeting civilians because they're clearly intentionally targeting civilians. That is the problem with the argument. Like, the word is basically telling people that they are like, it makes you feel like they are looking for civilians to kill, even though their intent is not the civilians. It is what's near the civilians, and the civilians are told to evacuate. But if they don't, they will be shot. They're not going to avoid destroying a facility because civilians are there, especially when they gave warning. And this has been true for war since forever. And the only thing that has been not true, like for war since forever, is that usually the enemy doesn't give you a warning that they're going to do it. That's the difference.
children. That's not a factual statement at all because it doesn't even include the base information. So it's almost like, you just don't know the information you need to know to make that judgment. And, let's forget comparing it to a domestic situation like Dave continues to do on Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, others. Like, if somebody killed my kids and I know where he's at and I go to that apartment building and I kill everybody in it, that's murder. And that's what Israel is doing. And that's not true. Even you, Piers, have commented about Israel striking something and saying, look at the number of civilians, that's not acceptable. That's not how war works. It's not even how you would assess that situation because it completely rules out what the law of war says about proportionality, about assessing what is the target, who is that individual, what's his value, concrete value. And then, which a lot of people leave out, is what precautions did Israel take, like we just saw recently, of calling everybody in the building saying, look, the terrorist is using this building for a military purpose. You must leave. You must get out of this area, or all the other steps, these civilian harm mitigation measures. So that
One thing I really want to emphasize here, in a war, there's no room for emotions, by the way. There is the law of war, which she's talking about, right? And you have to work within those confines to the best of your ability. And honestly, sometimes that's not even possible. War is, it's the cold logic to emotions. There is, like, you cannot be emotional in war. Why? Two reasons. One, you either what do you call it? You like overdo it, right? Like you go like, cause like, oh, they pissed us off, they committed this heinous act, we're gonna fucking bomb all of them. If Israel was emotional in its response, Gaza would be flattened. They have they have it, and they had the ammunition. October 8th, there would be no Gaza if the response was emotional. Okay, you cannot be emotional in war. You have to do a calculated response. You have to make sure the response would be within the confines of what is appropriate based on international law. And even that sometimes like gets over. Again, if you're the US, you don't listen to international law. Why? Because you are the police, okay? Like, you're the one dictating international law. Technically, right? Nobody's gonna come and be like, oh, you guys are committing crimes. Like, and what are you gonna do about it? Okay, but in the case of Israel, they do have to abide to the certain standards in this war, so they couldn't just flatten Gaza, like probably what the U.S. would do. If your neighboring country was the one that committed 9/11 and you didn't have to fly all the way to Iraq, bro, there would be no country the next day. The only thing that saved Iraq from annihilation is that it took weeks and months for them to even be on the ground there. Okay, that's what saved them. If Iraq was like next door to the US, there would be no fucking Iraq. Okay? Same as there wouldn't be a Gaza if Israel did an emotional response. Now, the other problem with emotional response is you can do too little there. It's like, oh man, but they're poor, they're suffering, we understand their plight. It's like, yeah, they attacked us, but like, we understand why they would do it. And then, like, you underdo it, the terrorists get another day, and, another October 7 will happen. As they stated, they want to do multiple October 7s. So, you can't be emotional. You have to be rational, and you have to make decisions based on the information you have. Okay? And if civilians die, I'm sorry, that is a price of war, and that price is on Hamas to pay, not on Israel. If Hamas want to stop the war, if they didn't want civilians to die, which is, by the way, the job of the country the job of the militant group of a country is to defend its citizens. The fact that Hamas refuses to surrender, refuses to release all the hostages, just by that alone, it is their fault that their citizens are suffering. Because it is their job to defend them. That is what they are there for. They're there to defend the civilians. Hamas is doing anything but defend its civilians. Okay? The dead children are martyrs to them. Okay? That is their psychology. So it's like applying our Western values to them. Bro, like, you're dealing with savages. Everything is a tool for them, for the sake of their goal. You can't deal with them on like the same moral level.
That one's a really huge one, but there are other ones, like when Dave said that there are more children to have died in this war than any modern war. That's just, of course, Douglas called that out, but there is a whole list of them, from the blockade, from the occupation, like all of these things were just
Would World War II be considered modern war? Because I'm fairly certain it's like way more children died there. But maybe he means in the last 20 years. I mean, like, how specific do you want to be, right?
counterfactual and not a logic that leads to a conclusion.
Also, like,
really,
are we looking at just like the straight up amount, or are we comparing the amount based on how much ammunition was used? Because technically, Israel has the best proportion of kills to ammunition lost. Like, they're throwing way more bombs to be as precise as possible than they should if they just want to like blow up an area and like actually kill all the terrorists. They would kill a lot more civilians as well. So clearly they're calculating to an extent, right? Not even to an extent. They're calculating a lot on how much ammunition, how much firepower to use for a specific thing. Because like I said, they could have just flattened Gaza on October 8th if they really want to. They're like, okay, well, that's it. We're done with Gaza. Fuck it. You know, you citizens had a nice run. But, I mean, like, your government fucked up. It's not the fault of the citizens. You know, we're going to have that argument. But the acts of Hamas are their own, and they're also responsible for the lives of their citizens because they are the government of that place. Clearly, they don't care about their citizens.
Convincing, and that's what I have a problem with.
All right, Dave, your response.
Sure. Well, okay. I mean, I do think that like you do a lot of this, as Douglas did, a lot of this poisoning of the well stuff and saying you
not a lot, by the way. He literally said one sentence. This is what I study for a living, and he tells jokes for a living. There it is, poisoning the well, but that's not a lot. That is really not a lot.
Tell jokes and I do research, and you could say this isn't credentialism all you want to, but it's really a lot before you start taking on an actual argument. In fact, it wasn't until the follow-up question that you pointed anything out. So to the analogy that I'm making, and you know, as you were quoting me on Twitter the other day, I'm not saying that I'm not familiar, although I'm not claiming to have your level of expertise with international humanitarian law, or you can assert that war works a different way. I'm talking about something much more fundamental. What I'm saying is that Douglas is making the claim, and many others are, that Israel's killing of civilians is unintentional. And I'm talking about a very basic philosophical concept of morality, of intentionality, and that
it's an emotional argument, by the way. He's gonna try and say that it's a logical argument. It is an emotional argument. Morality isn't really logical. Morality is an emotional, like, straight up. Morals come from from emotional, like, if you have only logic and emotion, morals would be attributed to emotion, not to the logical.
By what people mean when they say intentional, that if this was done domestically, we would consider it intentional. The point is that war, yes, look, there's been the Geneva Convention, there's international humanitarian law. It goes back to the mid-19th century, was codified into law after World War II. I think that's a good thing. I think
so again, this is the problem with like the definition of intention, right? Their purpose is destroying either a facility or killing a terrorist. They give warnings, they do as much as they can to reduce, they're intentionally also trying to reduce the amount of civilian casualties during the attack, as much as they humanly can, okay? As much as they currently can with the current technology, okay? Their intent, their purpose is not killing civilians. However, they are not shying from the possibility that civilians will be hurt when they try to take down the objective. That is just the nature of things. So they will not cancel their mission because there are civilians in place, because they did everything they could prior to the mission to try and reduce civilian deaths as to the maximum that they possibly can. That is the thing. Now, technically, Dave is right. They're still intentionally going to be killing civilians because they know they're there, and they're still proceeding with the mission. Yes, that is a calculation that they have had to do before going into the mission. They did everything they could to reduce the amount of damages to civilians. But at the end of the day, yes, this is war. Your morals don't mean jack shit in war. Your morals are not going to win the day. Okay? Actions win the day. Now, if he just wants them to admit that based on definition it is intentional, sure, you can make the argument, like, I would agree, yeah, based on definition, it's intentional. Like, there is intent to destroy the target, knowing full well civilians will get hurt. But the purpose of it, the actual intent of the action, is the objective. And the objective is never the civilians. That is just casualties of war.
It's a step in the right direction. But this is all a politician or a group of politicians declaring a word, and the fact that there are lines drawn on a map does not in any way magically transform morality or the basic philosophical concept of intent. And even in your example there, if I were to give out pamphlets, give out a warning, tell everybody I'd really like you to leave, and then they didn't, and I blew up a building, we would consider that intentional.
See, that's what I mean. The objective will remain. The mission will remain. They did whatever they could to reduce the civilian casualty, but civilian casualty will happen if they don't follow instructions. Yeah. So based on that definition, sure, there's intent. But the intent is not the civilians. The intent is the objective, and civilians are in the way.
Murder. Now, my point, I think
and somehow equating this to murder is stupid. Now, I think he gives an example of like domestic versus international thing.
A lot of times people object to almost what the implications of this way of looking at the world might be, but forget all of that for a second. I'm just talking about how human beings think about these things. And when you talk about
No, only human beings in a place that hasn't experienced war on a regular basis. That's how you would think about this. Yes, if you're in the Western world and you have been living in peace your whole life and you did not know war and whatever, this is how you would think about it. That is not this is not the scenario. I grew up in Israel, so you know I'm biased. Right, I grew up in Israel. I'm sorry, bro. If I hear sirens every fucking day and once a week we have drills to go down to the bunkers because to practice when rockets actually start flying and shit like that, yeah, you know I'm gonna build some fucking resentment to the assholes that are making me do that. Okay? When I see on the, what's called, a Thursday evening news that a club has been blown up in Tel Aviv with 50 casualties, that a bus has been blown up, that the base I'm in is having rockets shot at it when I was in the IDF. Right? Yeah, I'm sorry. This is not the same. We don't have the same moral compass anymore. We are dealing with people who do not want peace. He wants to give basic human rights to anyone. And I'm sorry, no, human rights have to be earned. Like, the West earned its human rights.
Intentional killing. Now, by the way, I should also stipulate that it's not as if that's the case in every single one of these strikes that Israel's taken. And we've got an
vast majority of them. And yes, obviously, telling the terrorists your every single move is a fucking retarded strategy. Of course, you're not going to tell them every single time you're going to bomb something. First of all, some bombing will happen like on the spot. It's like, we just detected this high-profile target. We need to take action now. It's like, oh, well, send the pamphlets. Let's wait 2 hours. No, that's not going to happen, of course. This is such a dumb argument. This is why I said, like, he's already in his bias. He doesn't even realize it, I guess. And he's talking about a subject. He does, like, this is, again, I don't care that he's not an expert. But you are talking to somebody who is, and you're not even near the level of understanding of what is going on. You are talking about emotions and morals and human rights, yada yada yada, and he's talking about that doesn't exist in war, bro. What you want is a world of butterflies, while he lives in the fucking swamps with the fucking I don't know, like what's a swamp creature, okay? Like, he talks about the dirty, the vile and disgusting shit that happens in a war that is unavoidable. And you want people to consider morals in that time. Bro, if you start considering morals with every action you take, you are losing that war. Like, straight up. You are losing that war. That moment you are thinking about morals, if you hesitate to shoot, that's when you die. You can't be serious with this argument.
All types of evidence about this, and there's quite a number of cases, hundreds of cases, where they're waiting for terrorists to go back into a residential building and then attacking the building, suspected terrorists, I should say. But regardless, none of this is even...
This is how you know he's taking his information from like TikTok videos. That is the least efficient way to take down somebody, waiting for him to go into a building. What if there's a basement in that building? What if there's a tunnel in that building? If you can't see the target, you can't just bomb the building and hope he dies. Why would you wait for him to, like, that? It just doesn't make sense, bro. Oh, I mean, like, let's wait for him to go into the building so we can blow up the building, giving him the best chance to survive instead of killing him where you see him. That is such a dumb argument. Oh
really
my god.
The point. The point is that on a very basic human level, there...
Again, this like I can't, bro. I can't, like, what is it talking? What human level, bro? It is a fucking war.
I would also think this is completely incompatible with Christianity, although I'm not trying to lecture anybody about that. But there is no...
Brutality of the Crusaders. Last I checked, they were Christian.
Micro and macro morality. There is no micro or macro intentionality. These are human concepts. And if you are dropping a bomb and you know that there are women and children on the receiving end of that bomb, then that was done intentionally. And I think this is...
And again, by definition, he is right. I think I got the point across. He's right. Intentionally, sure, based on just definition of the word, yes. There is a target. There are civilians there. We did all we could to mitigate it. We're still gonna go at it. It is what it is. Okay, this is the last point I want to make about this video. I think Eric Weinstein does a pretty good job explaining basically what I was saying about like the Western culture and like how you are applying these standards of, you know, your morality to a situation that absolutely doesn't deserve your morals, because that... It's like, go to the ancient Mayans and tell them that sacrificing a virgin to the gods is immoral. Like, good luck explaining that to them, okay? You are talking about a civilization that doesn't share your moral values, not even close. Anyways, let's see what Eric has to say here. This is basically like the most common sense of common sense, and if you don't agree, again, just seek a medical professional.
I said this is going to be horrific. Innocent life is going to be lost in Gaza. This is a plan. And every time I see that and I see people holding hostages, I think, wow, how fascinating that the world can't put together the fact that Israel is in effect forced to move. And this was clear before Israel ever went into Gaza. Sinwar, one of the things I did when I was in Israel was to yell at the Israelis saying, you had an evil genius who bested you. You pride yourself on your intellectual achievement. You lost. Right. You're still talking about human shields. This guy's 2 moves, 3 moves ahead of you from the grave. And the fact is, I feel what Dave feels. I just feel it 100% towards Hamas. I don't understand. If people do not realize what war is, where it will be brought, whether it's Charlie Hebdo or
They just don't. Like, people just, I legit believe people don't understand what war is. It is baffling to me. Just watch any war movies, man. They explore this phenomenon pretty damn well. Aside from like the dramatics and shit, war is vile. It is disgusting. It is brutal. It is dirty. You know the old saying, there's no rules in love and war? Well, it's the most true when it comes to war. Not so much towards love. Love, there might be rules.
the Bataclan or a parade in Nice, you are talking about a level of warfare that you cannot accept because it is predicated on a strategy of women and children being the biggest munition in war. This is the great asset in hybrid war. And what we are seeing
Yep.
is an innovation that has to be
like, again, people who apply their moralities to this war legit just don't understand when people say human shields. They, first of all, actively mean human shields. But what Eric Weinstein is saying is this is way beyond human shields. What we knew as human shields was just like, putting your armory in like a school. This is way more than that. This is literally using people as the trees that you would cut down in order to get to your objective. They are literally treating their own civilians, women and children specifically, as just a fence that should be cut down in order to get to them. Like you build some fences to build your defense against the zombie apocalypse. The fences that will be taken down by the zombies are the women and children. They're literally just placing women and children as a fence against the zombie apocalypse. Okay? Like, you don't understand the monstrosity that is Hamas. They do not give a single fuck about their own civilians. And people in Israel know this. It's like, oh no, this is just Israeli propaganda, man. Like, there's no way anyone is this brutal. What do you mean? It is honestly fantastic strategy. It is the most logically effective way to win this war. Because you know that the other side is good. How does evil win against good? It makes good have to avoid a lot of doing a lot of evil things in order to win. Therefore, instead of going in a straight line towards the evil, they have to go through some fucking mazes in order to achieve their goal. Which is what Israel is doing. You think it's hard for Israel to win this war tomorrow? But like that, fucking nuke the whole place. Not nuke, like no radiation, but like they can flatten the whole of Gaza. No problem. If Hamas had the chance, the opportunity, the technology, the firepower to do that to Israel, bro, in a heartbeat, it wouldn't even be a fucking question. They already shot over 100,000 fucking rockets. I don't know if it's over, but like it's pretty much there since 2008. You think they're not gonna, like, they wouldn't do it if they had the capability? Of course they would. Oh, but Israel has the Iron Dome, bro. That's a limit. That's limited. Each rocket in the Iron Dome costs $50,000. Each Qassam rocket costs like $10. Guess who's gonna win the war of attrition when it comes to money? At some point, if it's not handled. What, Israel's not fucking printing dollars? The US is not printing rockets? I mean, kinda are. But it's finite. There is a limit.
stopped. Israel is so bad at this. It hasn't figured out. Imagine if they had the supposed imaging we have for under the pyramids to map the tunnels of Gaza. Imagine that they developed ingenious ways of getting down there to spare more life. This is a call for Israel not to lose its soul. But the fact is that it's being outplayed by a dead master strategist.
That's the key, man. That is, oh man, that sentence. It is a battle for Israel to not lose its soul while also having to deal with this mastermind plan of just sacrificing your women and children because you know that you like, well, Hamas has no consequences. Well, what's the worst you're gonna do? Want them dead? Pfft, they're terrorists. They already want them dead. Who gives a shit, right? It's like they can't stoop any lower. So it's like, what is stopping them, right? They can't stoop any lower, right? Like the consequence to them are not gonna be any worse at this point. Like it's the same consequence. They can do whatever the fuck they want. Anyways, that's it. All I have for this. As you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this subject. I should probably make more of these videos, man. I'm very passionate about this. But honestly, like it's not a complicated issue, man. It's really not. Like the whole war with but again, coming from a logical, not moral, emotional, but from a logical standpoint, I think this issue is very fucking easy to like, oh, who does this land belong to? Whatever, whoever can defend it. That's usually how it goes with territories. If you can defend it, it's yours. If you can't defend it, it's not yours, and that's it. Anyways, I said all I have to say about this. Hope you liked my rants. And if you're a Hamas supporter, make sure to leave a comment. I will make sure to call you a retard. That's a promise. Have a good one.